Welcome to the Tech Story Podcast, the place where we interview founders and interesting people in tech. Today, I'm very excited to welcome Ben Towers on the show. Ben is the founder of Happl, an employee benefits and engagement platform for startups. Ben, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Would you like to share a bit of background about yourself and Happl?
Yeah, so I'm 24 years old now. I had a company when I was really young, building websites in my bedroom, and that got my excitement for tech. I was always that guy who loved technology, and then grew that company from 11 when I was 18 years old, ended up exiting that, and we were doing websites and marketing for a bunch of quite cool brands like Unilever and so on. Then I had 3 really random roles I was doing in that time. I was working a lot with the Royal Family, UK government, and then also was the comms director at GlaxoSmithKline for a period. And then after that, started Happl. We did Y Combinator last year. And then, now we're growing the team out and doing up employee benefits and engagement for a bunch of cool startups.
So you've accomplished so much already, by the age of 24. What made you go from, selling your business at 18 to starting another one, barely 3 years later?
I don't like working for someone. And I think that for me, I love the disruption of entrepreneurship. I love the fact that you just push it and it's at your own pace. And I think for me, that's why I always knew no matter what, I'm going to be starting things, over my whole life, it's going to be a big thing for me. So I always knew I was going to start something. Why Happl? Because I actually had some really close friends go through some quite bad mental health challenges. And I was like, I want to do something to get people better access to support. I was like, I'm not a doctor, so I can't provide the support. But for an employee at a startup, actually their benefits is often that support. It's therapy, it's wellbeing budgets, it's the private medical insurance to get access to. And so that's then how we got into this space, out of this idea of realizing maybe we can't help directly, but we can help facilitate access to
the platform. And we use it internally, so you give budget to your employees and they get to choose how they spend it. And mental health is a big area. What are sort of the other use cases for Happl?
Yeah, so traditionally, companies would get into B2B benefit contracts and buy these softwares and whatever, and we just found that doesn't work because you end up paying for loads of software which each get 5 or 10% uptake and so on. So this idea that budgets is saying, look, take the money we would have spent on all these apps and services and whatever, and let the employee decide. There's some amazing consumer products out there that they can now buy. We get discounts for it, so we can also pass that on. So well-being is a massive one. L&D budgets is another really common one. And also work from home setup we see is quite a big trend. So we have that's like day-to-day employees offering that. And then we also then overarching that have our private medical insurance proposition where we basically help companies get set up and automate it and make it much easier to manage.
That's great. And in terms of the platform, I know you mentioned insurance is a big area of focus for you. What's sort of the plan for the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, so we're growing our insurance piece massively. It's an area we're now moving more and more into because we've realized that's often the first benefit startups are offering. And I say for you, that's always the first thing you think, let's do that for. So that's the area we're really growing more into and getting deeper under the weeds per se for that. So that's one part. The other thing is this international element, because now increasingly seeing startups where you've got employees in multiple countries. And so how can you offer benefits to those employees which are compliant but also competitive in the local landscape? So that's the other big element we're really growing out quite a lot to support it. If it's just a UK team, up to a certain size, you probably could do it yourself and manage it, a bit of admin, but you probably could. If you've got employees in 5 countries, that's now 5 times that workload and makes it a lot more stressful. So we've been trying to alleviate that.
Yeah, and insurance is really important because when you're young and fit and healthy, you don't really understand the value of insurance. But when you're not, then as an employer, then you think, why can't my team work? And sometimes having private medical insurance helps the employee see the doctor faster and get better faster. So it's really, really important.
I think interesting about it as well is private medical insurance is caters for the whole workforce, but in tech startups, the average age is much, much younger. And so that's the other challenge which we're trying to get now, and this actually say the type of claims, the type of individual we're insuring here is so different than your textbook. Typically was big fintech companies doing PMI, and now we're getting these tech startups to do it. So that's the other big piece we're really trying to change because the type of support I need is so different.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what's been your favorite moment since starting Happl?
Yeah, I'd say, going through Y Combinator was amazing. Like, we learned so much. It was sort of a tail end of COVID, so it was all online, but we actually went out for the last month of it. And just being in San Francisco, being around, we had nearly 400 or so other companies in our batch. It was actually a really big batch. But going to the events, every night there was dinners, there was drinks, but it wasn't just 10 people, it'd be hundreds of people. And that, from a network perspective, from a founder's point of view, like if you ever have a bad day, it's like chatting to other founders gets you back up. And so to have that constantly was amazing. And I'll never forget that sort of like experience of having that and still having those connections now. I think that's one big thing. I also say the other thing is actually for us, there's those lots of micro wins and so on. Like literally yesterday, we won quite a big customer, the competitor. And for me, it's like trying to celebrate those things a lot more of the team. Because yes, the YC thing's great and it's a big thing, but they happen every now and then. So I'm also trying to get my head into the smaller wins. But I think as an entrepreneur, you say, all right, that's good. Now what's the next one? You have to spend time to reflect to know, actually, that's really good, we got that. But often you just think about the next thing too soon, which is good, but also you can miss out on some great wins.
Yeah, no, I think sometimes, because we're always looking on to the next thing, you sort of take the present win for granted. And if you don't celebrate the wins, then you end up only celebrating the losses, and then just, too much negativity can kill the momentum. So great. And what you should have known before starting Happl?
I actually think there's two ways of running a business. There's venture backed and there's not. And in real simple terms, the reason why I say that is because for me, this is the first venture backed business, so invested and so on. And so for me, what I wish I knew is actually it's a very different style of business you're building, and the sort of people you bring to the table, the speed you build and so on is very different. And I had to learn over time that actually in this sort of business, spending a tiny bit of money to grow quicker is actually what your aim is to do as a company. And so I think if I would start again, or what I wish I knew was actually some of those nuances around actually it's about a pace, it's about that growth numbers compared to traditional companies where it's about
being profitable.
Yes, that profitability, and we have to become that. That's what we're striving towards. But for me, venture back, you grow quickly and then profitable. And so I do is you just get up and then flat.
Yeah, it's all about acquiring market share, and exactly. And then once you've got the monopoly or the entire market, then you can focus on your unit economics. And yeah, I guess it's something which I've also sort of struggled with is, you can delegate or not. You can do it yourself, go quicker, or delegate and scale. And ultimately, venture allows you to do that. Whereas in a traditional business setting, you wouldn't necessarily be able to do that.
Even delegation's hard because, like, sometimes in my mind, I'm like, I could just do that in 20 minutes. And I used to be like, I'll just do it in one evening. And you get to you burn yourself out because you're doing anything in the evening and then you're never delegating. And so sometimes you go, it's 20 minutes for me to do. Maybe explain to team members 35, 40 minutes because you want to get them up to speed what it is in the context and all that sort of thing. But that's an investment in the company's future, passing that knowledge. And that was a big thing that I've had to learn, because typically if someone was like, oh yeah, I'll look at it later, I'm like, no, I'd rather just do it. I've had to really get to terms with the idea that for the long-term success of business, you have to empower the individuals to say, that's for you, which is hard as a founder.
Yeah.
You just want to do it. It's like when you're first starting out, it's just you. So you're used to doing everything.
I guess, well, as a founder, you're always guilty of not delegating enough or doing things that you shouldn't be doing. But the way I also view it is, as a founder, you also can work in the evening if you need to. And sometimes I rely on that too much.
Yeah.
Because But anyway, and as a busy founder, what types of contracts or legal documents sort of come in front of you, and what patterns or feedback can you share?
Yeah, so we have our traditional HR, fundraising ones and that sort of thing. The big thing we have a lot more contracts for is we have our marketplace full of discounts and rewards and so on, and they're often 2-year cycles with these suppliers. And so we have a lot of moving parts of that. We have 3,500 discounted gyms on our marketplace. So each of those, you have regulatory things, you have contracts, you have how you can come up the size and so on. So that's been a massive legal challenge we've had to go through, is to go, well, they want different renewal terms, different stipulations, different this, different that. and then you have to try and bring it all together. So that's been an area where it's been hard to manage, but then it's also, that's a massive part of business. When we're fundraising, there's a big thing to say, okay, what's your defensibility? And often it's down to the contracts and that hardcore, well, look, we have exclusivity for this for 2 years, and that's why that's so good.
Yeah, I think legal as a moat is something which some businesses or some founders sort of overlook. But I was speaking to a founder who's sort of going through an acquisition, and he's being acquired because they have an FCA license.
Yeah,
in a space where not many players do. And so I guess having contracts, having good grip on those 3,000 partnerships ultimately is a defensibility.
We also have the other challenge where each of our customers has their benefit contracts with different people and whatever and suppliers. And so part of our role is to be on top of that as well. And so that's when we have our own contracts to legal and iron, plus once the customers, we have to know, okay, when's things renewing for them? How can we step in and negotiate better for them? So there's a lot of spinning plates actually legally where getting into this never thought it would be. And it's one of those things where it is like legal and finance is the backbone of the business. Without that, it won't work. You're forgetting how good your product is. Without those two things, be that.
And there's the two things that your clients probably don't see.
Yeah.
And how do you sort of keep track of all the data, or what's best practice can you share?
Few things is like I have to make sure I file the contracts really well. So the second we sign it, second it's done, file it, put renewal the minders in. We know it's going to happen. We know how it's going to be. And so otherwise, if I just go, I'll do it another day, you always forget. So really on top of filing it. Similar like bookkeeping, when you get an invoice, forward it to the accountant quickly and you never have to think about it again. Similar in this legal sentences, the second something's agreed, get it in writing, get it done, out of sight, out of mind, but it's go ping back up when the time's right. I think that's been a big thing. The other thing actually, which has been I've learned, is actually just how to read a contract. And that's another thing, as a founder, very few people have got this legal degree, but you're reading contracts every single day. So that's been a big learning curve for me. And I that's think now I'm good enough where I can read a contract, summarize it in my brain and go, okay, now I know what that's going to mean.
And not to put you on the spot, but what sort of, what do you look out for, in a contract? What sort of tips can you share to prospective founders?
Yeah, I always find contracts funny. But for me, I always think about a contract is, even if it's a dummy contract, just like before you agree or anything, that's the true sort of mentality they've got coming into this agreement. I love reading contracts someone else has written, because, as in like the other party in the other fight, because then you really know their true mentality of it and what they're really expecting.
So are they a true partner, or are they trying to...
Oh, it's just an absolute commercial conversation. Yeah. They'll say one thing to your face, the salesperson will be blah, 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 but then when you get the actual, words on paper and you realise actually it's a very different contract than what I was expecting. So for me, where I do it is if it's a big partner where it's a big strategical for us, I actually do it on the tube, because I'm in London, you're always in the tube. So like I get my highlighter and I just print it out and I'll just sit there and I'll highlight it and go down it. And it's similar to like what you do probably at school when you're like reading books and whatever. I just go down it, I highlight one colour if I don't know what it means, another colour if that's a thing just to be aware of. Get to the end, we have amazing actually lawyer who we use, and call up her and just sort of say like, these are my purple things. I mean, as in like, what does this mean? And we'll go, stuff, all good. And then when you get to the end of it, that's when you then know what the true intentions behind this. And do you want it? I get really wound up actually if a member of the team just signs a contract. And there's there are times not so much now at all because I'm really on top of it, but previously the time someone just signs a contract, oh yeah, it's fine. I'm not, but you don't know what you've just
signed,
locked into. There could be exclusivity clauses, it could be anything. I think that's a big thing. I always go to the schedule first of all, at the bottom of the contract. The reason why I do that is because that's the nuts and the bolts of the commercial conversation to that point. So I always go, if that's completely wrong, there's no point wasting the time on the other 10 pages. Once that's done, I'm like, okay, this is what we agreed. Then I go back and I read the real fine print. You're looking at things like how they can and can't use your logo and liability risk. And there's all these other things which are sort of embedded in that I think people should be aware of, because you need to know the best and worst case for your company.
Yeah, I mean, you need to read the contract, and if you don't understand, seek legal advice. There's nothing wrong with speaking to a lawyer, and it's much better to do that than ultimately put your business at risk.
I mean, what's it cost to have a lawyer to ask a couple of questions? I mean, maybe it's 50 or £100. Like, we're not talking a lot. I'm not saying to have them read the whole thing, just to go, what does this sentence mean? It's so cheap compared to fighting something to line.
Yeah. Or losing your business.
Oh, yeah. And I know people who have had it, just got themselves into an agreement and it's just destroyed them.
Yeah.
We find, even in the space of moving into doing more private medical insurance, contract even more critical, because we're signing 2 or 3 year agreements with insurance providers to get, better rates, better pricing, better access and whatever. We're signing these contracts with these bigger providers. So to sign this, that's a 3-year deal. You need to make sure that it's correct, because it is, in a sense, the length of your startup plus a bit more.
Yeah, no, I think especially with the big companies, even if they've got the best intentions, they'll have a whole bunch of provisions to protect themselves, and sometimes those protections can hurt your business.
I don't forget, when we did the marketing stuff, there was one massive consumer business, and they sent us over their contract. It must have been 100 and something pages, if not a few hundred pages. It's the same contract they use for everything they buy, from toilet roll to marketing services, all in one. And basically, long story short, do what they want, when they want, and you can't touch them. And it's a horrible contract. And lawyers actually, some of them know of this contract this company had, because it's so awful. And I got that, and I went, I'm not going to read that on the tube. This is ridiculous. But I do think, yes, just got to be careful, and people don't pay enough attention to it.
Great. And you're on the Tech Story podcast. What's your favorite tech product?
For me, I love Superhuman, actually, as an email thing. And the reason why I love it is because of the speed. I love sort of the speed and going, and just sort of, I remember bang you. Thing about emails, the more you send, the more you think to get back. So, like, for me, it's a product I've properly got myself into. I've tried the calendar ones and these sort of other productivity things, never really fell in love with them. But Superhuman is something that, without it, I don't know what I'd do. I can literally send an email, remind me in a week, with one click of a button, and then before I know it, I'm chasing people, which, as a founder, I now never have to worry about, has this person done bits or has this happened? Because I know I'm going to remind this when the time is right. Yeah, I'm chasing them.
No, I think Superhuman is also one of my favorites. And although I don't find it as fast as it could be.
You get keyword shortcuts going.
Well, not that. Well, obviously, yeah, I could be doing more of the shortcuts, but more, I've got Gmail on my phone, and the email hits Gmail 10 seconds before it hits Superhuman on my computer. That's like
intense optimization. That's like, you want that split 10 seconds more.
Well, no, but it means that I'm waiting for it to come on my Mac. So I've got my phone next to my laptop on the desk, hits the phone, I see it, and then I go to Superhuman and it's stopped loading. I did complain to them about it, and I'm waiting for a response, but it's a great app.
So what I want to do, I wait 10 seconds more for the.
Yeah, exactly. But great. Well, thanks a lot, Ben, for coming on the show, and best of luck growing Happl.
Thanks for having me.
Great.